Well, now, Sundays was always a special time for us. We as church going people, and mommy and daddy had to have us up and get us ready to go. Now, when I was younger, we'd get up and you'd get your Sunday best on, is what they called it. And that's where you'd get your best clothes on and slick your hair back and get ready to go to church. Now, our church was in the holler. It was at the mouth of the holler there. We'd all just walk down to church. You didn't never miss a meeting. It was very, very important to mommy and daddy that we went to church. Now, my sisters, they'd put on their dresses, and mommy, and she'd put on her dress. Daddy'd tuck his shirt tail in. Yeah. We'd go on out there to the church. Now, the church I went to was Pentecostal, and I guess a lot of people call them the Holy Rollers, and I've heard all sort of things. But I tell you one thing, that preacher, he'd come and he'd preach hot hell, and he was looking to save souls. Now we'd go, and the church was just an old one-room church, but it was kept up real nice. There's always somebody who'd volunteer to clean it up and keep the yard looking good, and it meant a lot to folks up in the holler. And we'd go, and it'd start off with everybody'd greet each other, and it'd be handshaking and hugging. And then service would get started, and you'd see it, they'd start singing, and one thing and then the other. They'd sing all the old tunes you probably know. Amazing Grace, songs that lift your spirits and bring you closer to God. And we always liked to sing, and that was good. Now the pastor, or preacher man, his wife was usually she'd play the piano and sang, and that's what we said when somebody did it real good, as a singing. But now she could sing, and we'd get all excited, and then the church would start, and the preacher'd give you some scriptures, and it could be in Psalms or Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. He'd find something to preach about, and we'd get to turn in their Bibles. I still remember Mommy kept the family Bible for us, and it was well worn. She read that Bible every day of her life. Never missed. She's a praying woman. She prayed for us all of her days. And she'd call on God to take care of her family. And then at the church there, we'd listen, and then if the Spirit moved, there might be some shouting. And that's where they called them holy rollers. You might get somebody shouting and speaking in tongues, and they might run the church, and they might get slain in the Spirit. And it may all happen. If the Spirit moved, you could feel God's presence. And I tell you what, it was something to be a part of. I love church. I still love church. It ain't the same as it was as far as back then. The church was as close as kin to you, but folks don't seem to take it as serious as they used to. We'd have a church, and then after the preacher got to preaching and then finish up, he'd have an altar call and try to save some souls. And the music would play, and then we'd get dismissed. And now once a blue moon, there'd be a baptism service. And we always did it down at the river. We'd go down the riverbank and gather around the whole church. And the preacher, he'd get in that river and he'd get somebody that was wanting to get baptized, and they'd hop out there with him, and then he'd dunk them in the water, and it was something to see. They just didn't. They come up a new man or woman, and there'd be a lot of times there'd be some shouting and singing and carrying on. There'd be a lot of, the Spirit could move down by the riverbank. But I tell you what, everybody was overjoyed when somebody got baptized. It was a special thing. Then after church, we'd walk back, and there wasn't no feeling like going to church. They still ain't no feeling. I feel like you're a new man when you get out. And we went home, and then Mommy'd cook, and that was usually the only day Daddy'd take the rest. But he'd get him some sleep, and then we'd all just have us a good day. But yeah, that church is just a little old country church. Just wasn't nothing fancy, but But boy, it sure meant the world to us. And we knew things would be all right if you could get to church. There's a lot of peace there. So that's how Sundays were back when I was growing up. Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing about that.